Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Butch Shorak, Options University. Welcome to Market Forecasts for Monday, May 6th, 2013. Access to this video is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing contained in this video, website, or promotional material constitutes a promotion, recommendation, solicitation, or offer of any particular investment, security, or transaction. Options University provides educational services that are meant to teach you the risks and rewards of trading stocks and options. We're not a service that tells you what to trade. We're not implying or guaranteeing any profit, and as always, do not trade with money that you cannot afford to lose. Let's take a look at the week that just took place and find out what kind of results we got out of the week. Looking at the Dow, NASDAQ, S&P, and Russell 2000 in that order, we see that percent change for the week was sterling. NASDAQ leading the way up 3% for the week. Dow up 1.8% and S&P up 2%, as was the Russell up 2%. Looking at the year-to-date percentages, we see Dow leading the way with a 14.3%. NASDAQ up 11.9%, S&P up 13.2%, and Russell following up with that 12.4% as we find that we are in this bubble that's up there, and it certainly will melt at some point. But at this point, the trend is up, and we see the markets responding to this euphoria that took place during the last week, as we are in an area of blue sky and new time highs in the Dow and the S&P 500, which gives us some kind of an indication of what the market is really doing. Looking at economic announcements for the coming week, we see that what will move the market? On Monday, nothing coming out in economic announcements. Tuesday, nothing coming out in economic announcements. Wednesday, so we see the first 3 days of the week are not going to provide us much as far as news for the market to fuel this rally. Unsustainable rally that it is, up 14% on the Dow. We certainly cannot do that quarter after quarter after quarter. Jobless claims come out on Thursday morning to giving us what last week's numbers were out of the employment, and as if we looked at last week's, they came in better than expected. Wholesale trade coming in at 10 o'clock, and looking at Friday again, we have nothing. So a week devoid of economic announcements to move the market. So the market's going to have to move on earnings numbers, and it's going to have to move on maybe international news. Who's to tell as we reach these lofty highs? Looking at the SPX for the last 3 months, we see that we are definitely in an uptrend. We've got the 30 above the 50, which is above the 200. We are at the top of our Bollinger Bands, which means that we're getting to that quote-unquote overbought area, and we see that we've had a nice rally off that 50-day moving average. So the trend is up with a breakout on Friday. In fact, let's look at a little closer chart and see what happened on Friday. We were trading sideways this week, a very, very tight range, showing us absolutely no indication that we were going up, consolidating below the previous high, and then all of a sudden we had the employment come out numbers come out for the month of April, and here we go, boom. We're called a breakout. We'll look later and see what kind of volume we had on that breakout. But we got the SPX breaking out into blue sky area, no resistance above as we head higher. Looking at the Dow, did we reach that magic 15,000? You bet we did. We didn't close there. We closed just below 15,000. But during the day on Friday with that big news, you see that we had numbers above that 15,000 as we have entered a new era in the all-time high of the Dow. NASDAQ certainly isn't anywhere near its previous highs of 5,000, but we saw nice little breakout, and it was even aided by Apple in the last week as we saw the NASDAQ breaking out to new highs for the year. Russell 2000, not quite as euphoric as the other ones. The small cap really is lagging as we're basically closed on that line of resistance. We'll see whether the NASDAQ gives us some kind of hint of a pullback after our big breakout on last Friday. The old theory of sell in May and go away certainly has not taken place at this point. A lot of people do that, and since 1950, if you did that and went away in May and didn't come back until October, you certainly would be up in your portfolio. So interesting time in the market as we have moved up to all new highs, and we've got a breakaway taking place in the month of May. Be careful as we are the air is getting a little thin up here. Next, taking a look at VIX, did exactly what we would expect, pulling back not to previous lows, but pulling back to lows as we got our breakout out of our major indexes. Let's take a look at some of our ETFs to find out what some of the other sectors did in the market as we had our breakout from our indexes. Looking at the bond market, we have to TLT, our ETF for that. We see that it did pull back as the market broke out, and truly what we would expect following what normal expectations out of the bond market. Let's take a look at that safe haven gold and see whether there was any flight to gold. We would expect that there wouldn't be. In fact, it might be just the opposite as they try to put some money into the market. Well, let's look at gold, and we see that gold did absolutely nothing, going sideways on a very tight range after that big breakdown on April 15th. All right, next let's take a look at the spider, see if we had what kind of volume we had on this breakout. And so we look at this and we see what kind of volume. Well, it wasn't low volume. We had lower volume during the week. It certainly wasn't the previous volume that we had back here around tax day. So we see spider breaking up on moderate volume. Certainly wouldn't call it a great high volume with the breakout. Looking at the financials, let's look at XLF, and they did exactly what we expected, trading sideways with the overall market, and then boom, as the market pulls up, so do the financials and the ETFs at an all-time high for the year. All right, and let's finally take a look at oil. See that we have oil continuing in its upward trend. Its upward cycle. Certainly not an upward trend, as oil seems to be going relatively nowhere. As we look at USO, our fund, which can give us an idea of what oil is doing. So for those of you that are gold members, stick around for our stocks to watch. We'll take a look, see what happened to these stocks on our week of breakout in our major indexes. And for those of you that are gold members, stick around for stocks to watch. For those of you that are not and would like more free videos from Options University, go to www.optionsuniversity.com/free gold. So ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, May 6, 2013. This is Options University, represented by Butch Shorek, and we want to thank you for being here. Have a great week and trade what you see, not what you think. And to our gold members, welcome back. And we are in an age that's interesting, as we saw breakouts in the market during the past week. And it depends who you talk to. You remember how many opinions you hear? You'll hear from those that'll say that we're on the verge of a financial meltdown, or we're in energy independence on the verge of that, which will usher in a new age of prosperity. And, you know, it's this disparity and this kinds of walls of worry that cause markets to certainly do big things and to take sudden drops down. But until that happens, the trend is still your friend, and the trend is still up, albeit that the air is getting a bit thin up here. The trend is still up, and we're basically got a market rally taking place. It will end, so know where your stops are, understand what it means to be a trader, and utilize those characteristics which you have. Don't get burned when it does pull back. It will. And many times it'll take place in the month of May. But at the moment, we see the market moving up, and it is not uncommon for May to be a strong month in a post-election year, which is exactly where we're at, and certainly one of the major news events of the year. And what was it that caused this big breakout? Well, it was great employment numbers, probably the best employment numbers since we'd had since the crash in 2008. So let's take a look and see again where we think we're going. Looking at the market, we have no resistance above us, and so looking at the S&P, you see we're in blue sky. And so if the last move took place from here to there, could we expect that much again? And it's just a matter of whether this keeps on going, or at some point there's going to be something that's going to cause the big blow off. Hard to say, but have your stops in place. Be cautious, as we're in an area of blue sky. And let's take a look at some of our stocks during the last week. Amazon, which has showed great weakness after earnings, finally had a little pop up on Friday, showing us no great trends as an uptrending stock, as it had disappointments at earnings. Let's take a look at one of the big surprises of the week, as we see Apple up 15% for the week as it just kept right on chugging. Certainly nowhere near its previous highs, but and still decreased earnings taking place with Apple. But a nice gain for the week, up 15% for the week out of Apple. Helped spur the NASDAQ up a solid 3% during the last week. Let's take a look at AutoZone, showing us the strength that it has and continued on up. Didn't have a breakout on Friday with the rest of the market, but remember, it was already breaking out and in blue sky area. Look at CMG. Chipotle still continuing sideways, hasn't gone past its previous high, and we'll see whether it continues to do so. This is a stock to watch if you're bullish, because look at that. There's your tip-off. That's the big steamship blowing in, because we got a gap up on huge earnings. CMG showing the kind of strength we like to see out of bullish stocks. Let's take a look at Google. Looking at Google, we see that it broke out with the overall market. No big surprise, as Google shows the kind of strength that it can have at $845 per share. Boy, it's sure time for a stock split out of Google. Looking at Green Mountain Coffee, we see that it's headed towards earnings, so close to earnings that you certainly wouldn't want to enter a new position on this time unless you're out before earnings. Remember, all the danger that takes place can change the complete complexion of a stock with earnings, as news overpowers everything. ISRG had its earnings announcement, and we see that it is no longer that big bullish stock that we once saw. Trying to get up to that 30-day moving average, was exactly where it's sitting, looking like a downtrending stock at the moment. All right, let's take a look at our next stock to watch. Looking at MasterCard. Breakout certainly showed us nice strength as we get into new highs on MasterCard, which is riding the wave of new prosperity. McDonald's showing us that it's back up approaching that previous high. Didn't break out, but showing us good strength as this restaurant tycoon shows us what it's like to serve hamburgers and serving new stuff on the menu, as you see there talking about serving breakfast 24 hours a day at certain locations. Always innovative and always trying to protect that investor and produce a new income with McDonald's. Let's take a look at Nike and see, whoa, that's a nice uptrend. There's earnings, that's where it changed, and it just keeps right on chugging along post-stock split, showing us what an uptrending stock really looks like. Just keeps heading on up. Priceline, heading towards earnings. Looks like it could have that little earnings run that Priceline is famous for. Not at previous highs, but you know the action on this stock. It can show you big moves, which it did during the last week as we had an entry on Thursday. All right, when we got a higher high and a higher low. Looking at W.W. Grainger, let's see what this stock did. Heading sideways, didn't get a new high out of the overall market, but this is another one of those bullish stocks. Where's the tip? On earnings. Wall Street likes this stock. It's got volume, and the volume was to the upside, so you can expect that if the market continues up, you're going to get a breakout of W.W. Grainger in the very, very near future. So that's our stocks to watch for all of you gold members. I hope you can take advantage of these, turn some of these charts into your favorite option strategy, and take advantage of what the market gives us on a weekly, daily, or whatever your favorite time frame is to trade. So with that thought, this is Butch Shorak, it's Options University Market Forecast for Monday, May 6, 2013. Thanks for being a gold member, and enjoy your education.